The following is a commercial-free community educational program brought to you by the Ethel and James Flynn Foundation and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Not feeling normal, as well as not even feeling safe in my own home environment, not feeling safe for myself.
I didn't feel like I had any room to complain. And so I internalized all of that and kept it all in and didn't know exactly how to ask for help, because why would I need help? Why? Everything seems great from the outside. Why do I need help? Why do I feel this way?
I felt like with my family, if they found out, or anyone else, in the community found out, they would think that, oh wow, she's just crazy.
I kind of just had to say, look, Mom, I need help. I can't deal with it.
Hello, I'm Lauren Sanders. Welcome to Opening Minds, Ending Stigma, Breaking Barriers. Mental health conditions, they're affecting people across our state and our country in record numbers. Your financial status doesn't matter, nor your race or religion, or where you live. Mental illness does not discriminate. Mental illness touches all of us in some way. 1 in 5 of us will have a mental health condition in a given year. Often the stigma associated with it causes a barrier to diagnosis and treatment. The stigma may come from our own expectations or our family's expectations. There are also cultural and religious views about mental health that can present additional roadblocks, but there is help. Mental illness is a health condition that is treatable, just like diabetes or heart disease. Research has shown people with mental health conditions can live full, productive lives. Come along as we introduce you to some inspirational people from Michigan who've been impacted by mental health conditions, but who've broken through the barriers and have gotten the help they need. And now they're living happier, fuller lives. Join us as we bring you Opening Minds, Ending Stigma, Breaking Barriers.
How y'all doing today?
We begin with Marcel Price, who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, anxiety, and depression at the age of 14 while growing up in Ypsilanti. Now known as Fable the Poet, he's living in Grand Rapids as the city's newly named Poet Laureate.
Don't mind me.
He overcame a troubled family environment, as well as biased attitudes about his biracial family background, all while living with mental health disorders. Now he's working to break down the stigma often associated with mental disorders by engaging audiences, both young and old, through his creative prose. He's also a partner in Mental Health America, a national community-based nonprofit. Marcel is committed to addressing the needs of those with mental health conditions as he makes appearances in schools and community centers across Michigan.
Don't mind me, because this poem is meant to be quiet.
I grew up in a really complicated home environment. I grew up with an incredible mother without a father around. My mom played both roles very, very, very well.
Said doctors about the child that was stillborn, moving. Said factors about the lifestyle I still live, yet soothe me more than the antidepressants, because isn't it depressing how life works sometimes?
I grew up with a stepfather that had issues with alcoholism and abuse. And at age 14, when things were really getting to the peak of where they were at, I was diagnosed with anxiety, bipolar, and depression.
Isn't it refreshing how life works sometimes? I'm sorry. I guess that's the bipolar. When you can go from your childhood theme song matching Saturday morning cartoons and understanding why you love ninjas, pizza, and turtles, to not understanding why life's hurdles seem to match Berlin walls as you crumble to pharmaceutical commercials because the jingle over the symptoms matches the dinner bell.
My mom was really familiar with it, and I feel like she knew what was going on when I started to lash out, when I started to get suspended a lot in school, when I started to hit those moods of where I'm way up or way down and there never being a medium.
And you're starving to feel normal. Your own arm always looks a little bit more appetizing when you feel trapped, so smother that. No, where's the salt?
Unfortunately, I feel like it was like in my mid-20s, like 25, is when I realized that like this wasn't a healthy cycle.
Because I know someone is willing to throw it, and I may have open wounds that won't heal soon, so if you are going to throw it, could you please pass the paper shaker?
When you're battling issues with mental wellness, when you throw substances in the mix, it throws you off kilter even more.
It is normal to eat 3 meals a day, and this might make a great one, but do you suffer from bulimia if you're coughing up your differences instead of meals? What's normal?
With having a healthy relationship is being open and honest and talking about these things, because if you don't and you act like it's not an issue, it's going to become even more of an issue.
Sometimes when I reminisce, I get sad. Is that depression? Should life lessons be forget that stepdad one tried to fight me every day because a pill will fix that? Erase to remember my grandest father figure trying to figure out why I can't bear to see him change with time. As I was told through Alzheimer's disease, he might forget me anyways this one time, or 2 or 3 times. Thought about killing myself. That's not normal.
Poetry, I feel like so many people say it with art. It's like, oh, it saved my life, but it has literally saved my life.
What's normal? I hear the symptoms are having both parents happy and functional. Functional meaning what you see is actually what you get. And those skeletons, if there are skeletons, will be safely swept under the rug, out of sight, out of the mind, as if the blind are happier people, because happy, that's normal.
I never had a structure. I never had anything regular. Between my mood, between my home environment, nothing was ever regular. And poetry was regular. It was consistent.
And not bottling the you won't, because you can't, or the you are too to do it, or I wish they never, so I never felt. Not normal. You shouldn't bottle unless it's prescribed. It's not normal. Well, neither is my disorder, apparently.
I could reflect on it and see exactly where my mind was at and exactly what I was going through.
And for some scary reason, I'm the 25th percentile child in the world isn't bipolar, then I ask, well, why does the globe have 2? And I have to think that my emotion percent is more relevant than my race, because face it, with the globe being 20% black, 10% Hispanic, 12% biracial, I wish to equally manage my emotion disorder in order of issue, get a tissue, race, because face it, I'm a minority anyway.
Now, I find so much worth in working with students because I hear that it helps them through these same issues.
25% of a 12% leave me feeling roughly 3% normal, but this poem is for the paper shakers. The ones whose hands match leaves and fall but don't because you aren't normal. Praise it. Using people's ears like medication because it's cheaper. Face it. Sometimes the only reassurance you need is people showing you that someone is willing to listen.
And now feeling like I have a purpose or a reason. That's the biggest help.
Do you ever get depressed? Why at times does it feel like there is nothing left, but there is everything? The same reason people pay no attention to art, but pay to record in the studio, but tune everybody else out, find out the world's north and south poles or milestones, and appreciate them no matter what you have. Because sometimes you will be the only one who will. And there's not a pill to fix that. That's a fact.
Everyone experiences the blues once in a while. Life can be unpredictable and stressful. Maybe things aren't going well at school or at work, or someone is having issues with family or friends. When those symptoms don't go away and affect your ability to function, then it becomes far more serious and it needs attention. That's when it's time to speak up and talk to someone. It's important to get the help you need to feel better. Without proper treatment, mental health conditions can worsen and make day-to-day life difficult. Communities of color are often more reluctant to talk about mental health. This can lead to trouble recognizing the signs and symptoms. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, African Americans are 20% more likely to experience severe mental health conditions. Kevin Fisher, Executive Director of the Michigan chapter of NAMI, is working to help others learn about mental illness and remove barriers to seeking help.
Early intervention is key to any illness, and so the earlier we're able to identify young people living with mental illness, get them proper diagnosis and on a good treatment plan, the better the long-term outcomes.
There are a lot of myths about anxiety and depression in young people, but the reality is feeling sad, irritable, or anxious most of the time is not a normal part of adolescence. In this case, parents play an important supportive role.
Ask them. Be a friend, be a parent, be a sibling. Love them as you did before you suspected there was a problem.
Here are some symptoms to watch for that may indicate a problem: feeling sad or hopeless, frequent crying, changes in appetite, trouble sleeping, increased worry and anxiety, headaches and stomach aches, withdrawal from loved ones or social activities, increased absence from work or school. NAMI suggests scheduling an appointment with your primary care physician or with a licensed mental health professional to talk about your concerns if you or a loved one is experiencing any of the above. Linda Zeller, Deputy Director of the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Administration at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, says the state's goal is to make public community mental health services as accessible as possible.
There are 46 community mental healths in Michigan serving all 83 counties. You can always seek help at the community mental health. There are crisis lines 24/7. Counseling centers in universities and colleges are also very good places to seek help.
Even with increased access to care, there is still reluctance and stigma associated with mental health, which is why the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services teamed up with the Ethel and James Flynn Foundation in launching Opening Minds, Ending Stigma, a statewide campaign now in its second year. It's about having the conversation and making it okay to talk about mental health and removing the barriers to getting help.
Our foundation is working really hard to improve access to mental health services, but we're also working to change the misconceptions that are associated with it. So the goal of the awareness campaign that we're supporting right now is to continue this conversation so that people are comfortable seeking help, but also that we're providing treatment much earlier.
Allison Schmidt, a Canton High School graduate who won 8 Olympic medals in swimming, was living the dream. But being a world-class athlete comes with a lot of expectations and pressure. It was after winning her medals when things began to change.
Something didn't feel right, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't feel like I had any room to complain. And so I internalized all of that and kept it all in and didn't know exactly how to ask for help. We're taught if we don't do well on a test, keep studying, you'll do better. If you don't get the time you want, keep going, keep practicing harder, you'll do better. In the game of life, it's a lot bigger than that, and you need your support system.
Allison turned to her parents and her good friends for support, and she got the treatment she needed for her depression. Today, Allison's speaking out about overcoming barriers and getting the help you need.
You can't get through alone. You can't just keep pushing through. And you need to be able to turn to those people closest to you and ask for help.
Statistics show that 1 in 5 young people has a mental health condition, which often goes undiagnosed, a delay which can make things worse as they grow older. And half of all mental illness develops by the time someone is 14 years old, and 75% by the time they are 24. Yet according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, only 50% of young people ages 8 to 15 get mental health treatment. Just as we should all care about our physical health, we should do the same with our mental health as well. And just as our bodies can sometimes become unwell, so too can our minds. It's not a sign of weakness to seek help for a mental illness, any more than it is to pursue treatment for a broken bone, diabetes, or cancer. The first step to getting the help you need is often one of the toughest. Barriers in our own community can prevent us from seeking the help we need. Talking openly about her depression with family and overcoming stigma in the Muslim community became a mission for Rabia Tor, a recent medical school graduate. She's the daughter of Pakistani immigrants, and there was also pressure on her to excel academically, and it was during her junior year when it all came crashing down.
My mental health challenges, I think, they were always kind of there, but you know, no one in my culture kind of talked about it. I mean, I'm from a Pakistani background, and I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, so it was fairly conservative. So I think that, you know, just going through university, I just kind of thought, oh, maybe I'm just, you know, a hot-headed, temperamental person. It's no big deal. But I think what really got to me was when I entered medical school and I was alone for the first time, and I was really kind of facing my demons for the first time by myself, you know, not having any distractions. And that's when it really kind of hit me that, okay, you know what, something isn't right. You know, throughout the next couple of years, I tried to talk to my parents about it. I tried to talk to my sisters about it, and it was difficult because they just thought that it was the stresses of medical school, which is, of course, it's hard, but I felt like there was this whole another side of it, and you know, no one was really understanding where it was coming from. And you know, thankfully, over the next couple of years, I was eventually like able to get through to my parents, and they were like, okay, you know what, let's talk about this because this is an ongoing issue, and that's why I started, you know, seeking treatment, and I started talking to people more about this. I started to talk to, you know, friends in my own community, friends that I've known for my entire lives, and family members even. But the one thing that I did is that I didn't give up. I didn't stop talking to my family about it. So I think that that's what I want to make sure that I get across to other individuals that are kind of in this position, you know, where they do have barriers and they have obstacles to receiving treatment. Don't give up. Don't just, you know, push it under the rug or shove it under the rug and just make sure that, oh, it's fine going on with your daily life. If you feel like you need help and there's something wrong, if you're not ready to receive treatment, that's okay. That doesn't mean that, you know, you're a weak individual or people are gonna think bad of you at all. Sometimes it just takes time.
Getting the help she needed and turning her life around, Rabia, who is beginning a residency at Providence Hospital, also created a film entitled Veil of Silence, which addresses the stigma of mental illness in her community. Her goal is to raise awareness for getting help for mental health, just as people do for their physical health. Indeed, the faith community is increasingly joining in the chorus of those raising the conversation about mental health. The Islamic Institute of Knowledge has been helping its members by holding mental wellness programs and talking openly about getting help if you need it.
Everybody wants to come to Michigan from the Arab world because, you know, they can find the services, they can find the organization, they can find the support. But if it comes from as a product of like an Islamic center or of a church, will be received in a better way, that then you can really tackle the problem and you can be more effective.
Other places of worship are also playing a greater role in breaking down misinformation and stigma surrounding mental illness. Bishop Edgar Vann, pastor of Second Ebenezer Church in Detroit, understands that and has made it his calling. Just as he helps his congregation of over 6,000 people with their spiritual well-being, Bishop Vann and his team are assisting with physical and mental health needs as well.
Churches in urban settings and urban communities are not just houses of worship. They are houses of healing. They are houses of hope. They are houses of help. You know, I'm a counselor, I'm a social worker, I do a lot of things to meet the needs of my congregation, which is what we view as ministry.
Wendy Gordon was struggling with her mental health and at the end of her rope when she joined the congregation.
I want to live. I didn't want to live before coming here, but now I do. So you can't isolate yourself. You can't stay away. You have to learn to live in your environment and avoid distractions.
We do have some clinical counselors here who are part of our ministerial staff, who are also actively engaged with me in that process. They need to make sure that they are being treated by a professional person who deals with mental challenges. But I also believe that they need to be in an environment that is open, loving, accepting, affirming, and helpful.
Studies show a mental health condition isn't always a result of just one event. Research suggests that multiple causes can interlink. Things like genetics, environment, and lifestyle can combine to influence whether someone develops a mental health condition. Many soldiers in particular who proudly serve our country only return home to find that they're struggling with the effects of mental health disorders associated with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Admitting you have a problem and asking for help can be particularly challenging for those who've been trained to be tough and brave. Gary Munger is a combat veteran who served in Vietnam and then 35 years later was deployed to Iraq along with his son Stephen. Gary comes from a military family. He also comes from a family with a history of mental illness. It took a long time, but Gary overcame an outdated 1960s view of his disorder before he finally got the help he needed. Ironically, his son suffered from PTSD upon his return and also got help. Today, they're waging a new battle cry to help change the conversation and end the stigma surrounding mental illness.
Mental illness run in my family. In fact, I got a brother, man, that's in an institution now. Unfortunately, my parents, they, like the whole black community was, they just didn't accept the fact that mental illness was treatable. So subsequently, they didn't seek the help that he needed. I had issues about fighting in Vietnam. I had issues about how we were being treated when I got back here. I had issues with society as a whole. I didn't feel comfortable, and I manifested that in a lot of my actions. I wasn't the nicest person to be around, let me put it to you that way. I thought I knew what was best for me, and I figured at that time what was best for me was to get around people that had been through what I had been through. I had to go look for it, if you understand what I'm saying, because they had programs set up, but they had grouped, looked like they had grouped everybody into one group and trying to treat everybody, you know, with the same methods, but individuals are individuals. So it never really worked for me. So I had to find something specific that, for one, I could relate to, and for two, understand that, okay, this can help me. In order for them to get help, they got to understand they have a problem. If you ain't right up here, you can be right with your limbs blew off. You can be right if you can't speak. You can be right if you can't see. But if you're not right mentally, then guess what? You ain't living. Okay? You're surviving. You're not living.
U.S. Senator Gary Peters served in the U.S. Navy Reserve and is the son of a World War II veteran. He introduced Fairness for Veterans legislation designed to ensure that veterans who have mental health conditions related to trauma have access to care.
The types of symptoms of depression, missing muster, perhaps self-medicating, all of these things can lead to a less than honorable discharge, and yet these individuals are suffering from PTSD. So what my legislation does, and now it's been signed into law, will allow these individuals to come back, and if they have credible medical evidence to show that they're suffering from PTSD, they can have that discharge changed, and that's meaningful because now they have access to the VA and all of the services provided by the VA. We know when a veteran is injured in a physical way, whether a gunshot wound or any kind of broken limbs or any kinds of wounds, those are treated, and yet, unfortunately, PTSD, which is every bit as serious, is often invisible. People don't see it, and they don't appreciate it for what it is and the need for help that is something we have to provide.
There's no doubt that taking an active role in your own mental health is the difference maker for many people. Tiana McLean is a busy mom with 2 young children who is enjoying her life today. She overcame the trauma of sexual abuse as a child. Tiana struggled for years as she dealt with her depression, but she overcame her challenges and is raising her voice as a survivor to help others. Tiana works as a youth specialist at the Children's Center in Detroit.
I know I tell this one poem which kind of talks about my story a little bit. It talks about when I was really, really young. I kind of was molested at a very young age. But then growing up, it really didn't bother me too much until I got about 15, 16.
Feeling like it was wrong, I told my family. Also the cops, but they didn't believe me. Growing up, scared to love, scared to trust a man because I thought they would all deceive me. My dad, a great man though, he showed me love and I knew all guys weren't the same.
So I did have to sit there and say like, oh, do I really need help? Or can I deal with this? Is this manageable? So I kind of tried to deal with it before I had to just come out and say, I need help.
For every cause, there's an effect. The loss of respect gave me a new agenda with a voice to project. I could have rejected her, but my life would reflect this innocent soul that I had to protect. With no neglect, I had to love and teach her. I was her mommy, I would never mistreat her. I thought it was her who needed me, but I was the one who needed her.
I had to go to the doctors. I had to tell my doctors, like, I'm sad. I'm crying a lot. I interact with my children, but it's not the same. I shouldn't feel like this. So I had to pull myself out of that to be a mom.
I'm her mommy, I guess I really complete her, or she complete me. I hit rock bottom, but I couldn't let the devil defeat me. But he's beneath me. My love for her was my ticket not to die.
I feel like if they teach mental illness like they teach physical illness, it would have been a lot better. Because growing up, I never knew about mental illness. I didn't know much about being depressed. I didn't know much about bipolar, anxiety, ADHD. I didn't know nothing about mental illness. So growing up, it was more so, your head hurt, take some pain medication. You hurt yourself, brush it off or something like that. It wasn't more of, well, if you feel this way and your thoughts are that way. I never knew that. And I wish we did have someone to grow up and teach us a little bit more about mental illness. And I'm not afraid to say that I need help. I know a lot of people are. When you see people, a lot of people like, nah, I can do it. And I had to tell myself that at some point. I was like, nah, I can do it. I'm not depressed. I can get out the gloom. I can do this, I can do that. But I couldn't. And I knew I needed help. So I had to do exactly that. I had to go get help.
But just like other ailments like cancer or heart disease, mental health conditions are something that can be treated. Barriers to mental health wellness can be broken when we understand the signs and symptoms. We seek help and we're provided support and we get the treatment we need. Recovery is possible, especially when someone starts their treatment early and continues to play a strong role in their own recovery process. Thank you for watching Opening Minds, Ending Stigma, Breaking Barriers. I'm Lauren Sanders.
We're all fragile. Everybody is a paper boat on this journey through life. And I feel like so many people focus on their issues and what they're going through currently, and they have their blinders on and they forget that everybody is going through something and everybody deals with these things different. So it's really just to be more compassionate.
I've learned way more from any failures I've had than any successes I've had. And yeah, I'm very grateful and happy for the 8 Olympic medals I had, but those all go under my bed and get rusty. Anyone can really hold them, but that's just materialistic. And to me, those medals mean a lot more than Olympic medals, and I'm able to now look in the mirror and say 8 words that represent those 8 medals, and that's, hey Schmitty, it's okay to not be okay.
It's a real disease, okay? But it's a disease that can be treated.
We're going to continue this campaign until we're comfortable talking about our health care, that we understand mental health is part of our overall health care. We're not treating it as a separate issue. It is standardized, it is normalized. When we move to a point where we're just talking about our overall health, then we've achieved our goal.
I think that when people have hope, they rise. When people have hope, they become better. When people have hope, they learn how to cope.
This community educational program has been brought to you by the Ethel and James Flynn Foundation and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.